I always thought before finding God, before walking this path, the exact opposite of what we see here. And it can work. It got me a business that was doing $1 million a year. However, that came at a massive cost, which is that my life didn't align to who I was. Like, I was living somebody else's dream, even though I thought it was my own. That's how deeply it was planted inside of me. I was constantly striving and reaching, and it made me unable to be present. And that lack of presence prevented me, like it was the thing that stopped me from seeing the simple truth and finding the peace and ease that I've finally found. I have so much more energy now because there is so much energy going into the seeking. So I was looking when I was building the gym, when I was building that $1 million a year business, I was looking to external cues instead of following my intuition and internal guidance. And I am not going to make that same mistake again. So I want to share a story with you today. And it's a story of quote unquote success. However, it's also a realization that that success came with a massive lack of alignment. And basically, the lesson that I learned is that it is possible to put everything you have into something only to realize that you climbed the wrong mountain, only to realize that that wasn't the thing that you actually wanted. And again, I think that's part of the path. I'm reading a book right now called The Second Mountain, which is about having this experience of building the first mountain and realizing in some way that it's hollow and then doing the real work. I'm going to share a little bit about the path that I took to come back to my soul and how I set myself free, and also a bunch of the mistakes that I made along the way. I'm also going to pull from the work that I do with people, these paid containers that I've had over the past couple of years. And all of this stuff emerged from being deep in the work and looking at both in my personal life and with other people patterns that are showing up over and over and over again. And my goal today ultimately is simply to share what I am seeing. That is it. Okay, I'm just sharing my observations. You can listen to me, you can not listen to me. You can come for the ride, you can say, fuck you, I'm out. I'm not here to convince you of anything, because I believe that wherever you are right now in your journey is where you're supposed to be. I'm just offering a direction for people that maybe feel a little bit similar to me. So this Stephen Covey quote that's on the slide, I absolutely love. If the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster. And I don't want to go to the wrong place. I don't want you to go to the wrong place. I know wrong is a strong word here, but I think you get the point, right? I think you get what I'm trying to say. So this is the start of the story that I want to tell today. This is the start of what I thought I wanted, but come to find out, it was actually me proving my worth to society. So before my life with God, I owned a gym, and this building was the first space, like the first physical location I got after seeing clients in my backyard. My schedule got full, it was outdoors, and so I was like, I need a place, and I found this building. And people told me I was really good at what I did. And I got really excited and I decided that this is my path. This is my life's work. And I put everything that I had into this process. I committed to succeeding at all costs and I forced the shit out of it. I made it happen, but I made it happen, right? I dreamed of this for like a decade, and to see it in the real world was wild to me. And people showed up. People resonated with what I had to say. A tribe began to form around me and to grow rapidly. And it made me feel good inside. It was going so well in that last facility that I needed to find a bigger space. So this gym was 2,800 square feet. This one's 8,000 square feet. And when we start to feel that outer progress, it can become really hard, really hard to convince yourself that something isn't right, because the outer world seems to be going so dang well. You're making a bunch of money, a bunch of people are showing up, telling you that you're awesome. And it can be hard to walk away from that. It's tricky, right? Because you can really feel like you're making progress. Like to see this turn into this is that same building. That's the sign we put on. It feels like we're moving and it feels like we have traction. And I've noticed with the gene keys and with other esoteric systems, it can feel like we have traction. It can feel like things are moving forward in our lives when ultimately we're just tricking ourselves. We're just getting deeper into the mental body. So ultimately, our mind just like spins our wheels. We act like the healing process needs to take a long time, but the reality is that it's in an instant. Like we just give our lives over to God and are reborn in that. And that's what I want. Like that to me is what is worth spending my time, energy, and effort on. So here's the new facility. Here's the inside of it coming together. I could finally pay someone to build it for the first time. Everything else I had done on my own. That's the yoga room there in the middle. The bottom left, we had sauna and cold plunge. And again, at the new building, people came. More reinforcement that things were going well. Yet inside, I knew that something was off. Even though I was having fun, right? Clearly in these photos, having fun, but something isn't right. So this is one of the big lessons that came from that time in my life. My soul had come for me in 2019 was when it became so clear to me that the way that I saw the world was not whole, was not true for me. However, I kept going because I needed to prove to the world that I was worthy. And then in 2020, COVID happened. And that rocked me and turned my world upside down. And I believe that if I had the courage to listen when I knew and made different choices, I could have saved myself a lot of pain. But I didn't want to admit that I was wrong, that I wasn't following my path. And because I couldn't admit that, it wound up costing me the business. It wound up costing me a marriage. It wound up costing me a lot of money. And that's the issue with sunk costs, right? If you've ever heard of a sunk cost, it's like we don't want to let go of what we've put into something. We keep dumping into it because we can't let go. But we've got to check in every so often and get really honest with ourselves about where am I going? Where am I keeping myself stuck? Where am I fighting? So that we don't do what this slide says and build something and do everything right just to realize that it wasn't what we wanted. And you can also do all the spiritual things perfectly. It's not just here in business, right? It's also in spirituality. And it's the very kind of rigidity in systems and then putting our faith in those systems outside of ourselves that keep us stuck. And that's another thing that I'm seeing is it's so easy to get lost in our seeking. It becomes our personality. It becomes who we are. Like we are quote unquote spiritual people, whatever that means. And then we got to wear a cool hat. Okay, so what's next? And this is me changing gears now into some of the ideas that I'll be talking about moving forward. So what does it feel like when an awakening first begins? This is something that I think is really important because the work that I want to be doing moving forward, at least in part, is with people who are already doing big things in the world, yet their soul has come. And it's like there are things that start to happen that a lot of people need help dealing with. So when your soul comes, it's like incredibly uncomfortable and unnerving. You have spent so much energy up until that point in your life in building things in the direction you thought it needed to go. Building businesses, building relationships, sacrificing, only to now feel your body and the world around you start to what feels like betray you. Like everything just shifts beneath you, and the feel of the fear of falling apart and losing it all is just hanging over your head. And it is intense. And it feels like if you take one wrong step, things are going to fall apart. And you feel this nagging voice that something is not quite right. And there are really, I've seen four big things that show up when this happens. So number one, emotions out of nowhere. You go from this analytical person that is able to separate emotion. I mean, I didn't have emotion at all, but some people are able to separate it to where now it's like emotion overruns you. And it is really, really difficult to push like you used to push because the emotion just puts you on this pendulum of swinging back and forth and it pulls your energy away. And so I used to be able to work and work and work. And when my soul started to come, I just didn't have it in me anymore, which was incredibly scary. And then add to that that the body starts to break down. Chronic stuff happens, skin stuff and gut stuff and low back pain and tension and depression, all of these things. And then it feels like life starts to work against you. Everything that used to work stops working. That thing that you could depend on all of a sudden becomes undependable. And so I had these things happen to me, and I can help people overcome these challenges and to step into a more soul-led life. And so I'm going to talk about that. After basically getting like beaten over the head over and over and over by God to pay attention, I finally began to do this work in earnest in 2019. And it started with a book by Gabby Bernstein, The Universe Has Your Back, which is not written for me. It's written for like, I don't know, 30, 40-year-old women. And if you've never heard my story about that book, I won't say the whole thing, but it came into my life three times in one day. And I'd never heard of Gabby. I'd never heard of the book before. And it just showed up three times in one day. And by the third time, I was like, and when I say showed up, like a physical copy, not just like somebody mentioned it. It was a wild experience. And so I started to listen and I started to allow these other ways of seeing and being and practices to start to take over my life. And so for me, the biggies were, and these are things that I'm going to be talking about and working with people on: meditation, slowing down, creating space, opening to God, this non-dual awareness, connecting to the witness consciousness. For me, meditation was very, very physical. I was needing to move all over the place. And my body started to release tons of tension. It's still to this day releasing tons of tension. Also in meditation, I met God for the first time. What I now know is God. I didn't know what it was at the time. At the time, it was bliss, but I know what it is now. And so helping people to meet God, helping people to make sense of what it is that they're feeling. Next thing that was really big for me is plant medicine stuff. And I'm just mentioning that this isn't necessarily part of what I'm going to be doing or talking about because I believe that the medicine needs to call to you. So I want to be careful of pushing people in this direction. However, for me, it opened me to a world of light that I had been blind to. And so that is the work that I want to be doing, is opening people to this world of light, helping them to see miracles. And if they want to go do plant medicine, yes, I can help on that front. That is something for me. I did psilocybin for like 3 or 4 years, every 3 to 4 months with a shaman in a very controlled environment, very safe container. And then also I've sat with ayahuasca more than a handful of times. So I'm happy to talk about those things if they're of interest to anyone. Just send me a message. And when I sat with plant medicine, I saw things that just did not fit with my worldview. And this can happen in meditation. This can happen like in these satoris, these moments of communion with God. And then last thing for my road back that I felt really important is devotion. Like I studied with many teachers and I learned everything that I could. And I had these devoted practices of prayer and meditation and physical practices with my body. And I am a disciplined man. I can be anyway. And so I can help people develop that discipline and some structure that allows the magic to play through their lives. After going through that transition, or actually before that transition, had transitioned identities more than a handful of times. I had gone from addict, which is what you see in the middle photos here, to Marine, which is what you see in those photos over there on the left, to finance guy. That's me after I graduated from college and doing the big money thing, to not pictured here is the business owner stuff because you already saw that. So these transitions, like they've given me a very unique perspective on the process of shifting identity and how to navigate massive change in life. And that's, I think, part of the reason that I'm here. It's part of the reason I've gone through all of these transitions. It's like developing courage and an ability to sit in that with people. And the biggest of these transitions is the leap from self obsession and thinking you're doing it all to a sense of being supported. And that's ultimately at the core of what it is that I will be doing and talking about. So along the way, I uncovered a ton of insights. As I said, firstly from my journey and then from sharing my thinking out loud. I tested everything that I could on myself. It was a huge trial and error process. And then the things that worked, I started talking about those things on social media and I started sharing them with people and I got a ton of feedback and I learned what was helpful for people and how to talk about it in a way that resonated. Then I started working with people one on one and eventually in small groups. And so everything that I'm about to share right now are earned insights from doing that work. There are patterns that show up over and over again in the work. And it's super easy to get stuck in like the busy work thing where we're just doing things so that we can feel like we have action. We're like the duck or the goose whose legs are going crazy beneath the surface, but it's not actually moving things anywhere. And this shows up in our career and in our spiritual lives. And it happens because we just want to feel better. We just want answers. We just want certainty. It's hard to sit in the unknown. The thing is, that makes it really easy for us to fall into some ego traps. And so I want to share three common places that I see people trap themselves. And I know these so well because I fell into them too. So no judgment, just awareness, just shining the light so that you can see these things. So first is the mental trap. And this is needing knowledge over wisdom. It's being analytical, breaking things into pieces, needing to understand how something works. And you will never feel like you have enough information. You will constantly feel like you need to know more. And that is why this is a trap. This is what keeps people stuck in learning a particular system. And that could be the gene keys. That's what I see around me because that's what I was talking about for so long. But it also could be traditional religion. It also could be science. Like it's just getting stuck because we are looking for the exact right piece of information that will heal us. And that even leads to people jumping systems. And then we've got the guru trap. And this is giving all power over to a person or to a system. And this is a trap because there is only one path, and it is your path. You cannot follow a system to freedom. You can only tune into your heart and blaze your own way. A person like yours truly, like Richard Rudd, they can only point you in the right direction. They cannot cut the path for you. You have to cut the path. I know you know this. And it's through cutting that path that you go from believing in God or believing that things are going to work to knowing it because you're going to start to see evidence and you're going to start to see proof. And that's what I want for people is to help them to know because nobody has the answers. Richard doesn't have the answers. Ra doesn't have the answers. I sure as shit don't have the answers. Astrology doesn't have the answers. Christianity doesn't have the answers. All of those things, all of those systems have utility. But the utility is that they help you to ask better questions. That's it. And then finally, the love and light trap. So this is pretending that all is good all the time. I know you know this person. It is living in fantasy entirely. They're pretending like the outside is good and pretending like it's good and pretending like it's enough and pretending that they don't want more. But inside, they are feeling eaten alive by a cruel and harsh world. What this leads to ultimately is people separating themselves from the world so that they don't have to be a part of the mess that's happening down there. I'm great. I'm love and light. You guys are fucked up. Obviously, not good. Okay. The problems. So those traps are so easy to get stuck in because of some like huge problems that we experienced at the beginning of our awakening journey. Now, Problems are actually a good thing, but when we're in the beginning of our awakening journey, it doesn't feel so. As Richard would say, every shadow contains a gift. So these are the problems and ultimately how I solve them. So one, domination of the left brain. We've already talked about this a little bit with the mental trap. Our society is obsessed with what it can see and measure. Our left brain is here to dissect and analyze. And the problem with that is thinking that it leads to thinking that there is a right way to do things. It leads to opinion. And if you're right, that makes somebody else wrong. And that is a recipe for pain and suffering in your life. So it's helping people to let go of that left brain and trust in the right brain a little bit more. And when that happens, we get into exponential growth instead of linear growth. Our left brain is step by step, our right brain is exponential. Our right brain is also where our intuition lives. And without it, you will constantly be out of right timing and you will not have the right people around you. And you'll default to what somebody else says instead of trusting yourself and your own intuition. And that obviously is a huge problem. So my work is about connecting people or reconnecting people to their intuition, which is much more scientific than it seems or sounds. And I'll be talking more about that as we go. Okay, problem number two is chronic illness. And we talked about this when I talked about what happens when our soul comes for us, right? The body starts to struggle. And the way that that shows up is chronic illness because our body is a scorecard and it will tell you how you're doing in this game that we call life. When the soul is not heard, it begins to scream in any way that it can get your attention, any way possible. And sometimes that means creating physical pain in your body. It doesn't start there, it starts much more subtle, but we didn't listen. And then it becomes a manifestation of something. And this is a huge area of focus for me because my personal journey was one through healing a chronic illness. And I have fringe beliefs here that work, period. Like I've done it with enough people, myself included, to know. And so people struggling with chronic illness, I really look forward to helping them on that side of things. And the chronic illness can be overall muscle or fascial tension or tone, skin issues, gut issues, even things like cancer. On the mental side, anxiety and depression. And I am not saying that I can cure these things for clarity. What I am saying is you can, and I can help in that process. So nothing in this world is going to solve that problem, myself included. And that's the common mistake that people make here is they look for the perfect treatment. They look for the perfect thing. And I did this. Like I did everything I could think of to help heal my back. I rested. Like I did nothing for months. I did all yoga. That's it for a year straight, which I was like hardcore training, weight training. And I just was like, I can't do this anymore. And I went and I did yoga for an entire year. No change, no progress. I got traditional injections, like steroid injections, helped for a brief period of time and then went right back. PRP injections, chiropractic care, acupuncture, literally, you name it, I did it except surgery. The reality is, though, there's only one way to begin to reclaim your body, and it's to unlearn all the old stuff that you've been taught about what you should do. It's the shoulds that keep us sick. Living somebody else's life. It's a process of deconditioning. Next problem, why is this happening to me? So this is obviously a common way to feel. It's this life is happening to me. And the road back to feeling whole can feel really, really hard sometimes. And letting go of control makes us feel really unstable in the beginning. That's what is being asked of us. And then we let go of control, and then our life blows up even more. And they're like, what the fuck? I thought I just needed to let go into control. And it makes us feel like a victim of circumstance. And unfortunately, a lot of people in that moment are like, okay, this isn't what I thought, and go back to the old way. That's why we felt like we needed to fight against the world in the first place, is because it was happening to us. But it's not. Everything is working out in our favor. And in seeking an answer to the question, why is this happening to me? We look for teachers or systems to give us a sense of control. And then we get over identified with that system. So it's a fine line in finding an answer that brings you a sense of ease, but not over attaching to that thing. Next up, identity mismatch. So the transition from one timeline to the next moves at different speeds in the outer world and in the inner world. The inner world happens much more quickly, and then it takes time for the outer world to catch up. The seed of a manifestation is inside you. So if you don't already feel that thing, you cannot translate it to the outer world. And this leads to a host of issues in life. For example, you feel crazy because the people around you can't see what you feel. You're like, I figured it out. I feel so much better. I went through this for a year last year, like 2024, where I was like, everything's awesome. And people were looking at my life like, dude, you just lost a business and got divorced. And what are you talking about? But I knew, but other people don't understand. Anyway, so you can feel crazy with this identity mismatch. Another thing that happens is wobbling. So when we enter into a new identity, it's very common that we can get scared and backpedal into the old life when something happens. Like I said, we let go of control and then something blows up and we're like, oh God. And then we're just like, well, at least I know what's going to come, even though it made me miserable. So we go back to the other way. And that keeps us looping in the same patterns over and over and over again. Because ultimately, humans, a lot of the time, would rather be comfortable than to actually change for our dreams. Okay, so this is the solution to all four of those problems at its core. And of course, I'm going to extrapolate out on each of them and all of these things, but at its root, this is the solution. It's so simple that most people can't see it. It is so close to you. It's like these glasses. I'm looking through the lens. I don't see the glasses, but they're sure as shit there, else I couldn't read what I'm talking about. Your new identity after your soul comes for you is actually the oldest identity that you contain. It's the you before the world fucked up your beliefs. It's you remembering who you are. And to do that, you've got to get to the most fundamental level of you. And that is called witness consciousness. It is this unchanging thing that is in the center of each of us. And eventually, a moment of breakthrough occurs, and you will remember how simple it is. You will feel this. And then it's about nurturing it and allowing more and more light to shine through it. Last piece here, there are four main phases of this journey to the real, true, and whole you. And the future teachings are going to unpack these things in more depth. I'm just going to quickly run through them today. So first phase of returning to self, of being the person that you know you can be, is space. And this is the most important phase because with space, God or the universe or love or whatever the hell you want to call it will do its work on you. This is the only non-negotiable. Creating space. Also, if you don't create space, if you don't slow down, you are going to hurt yourself or you're going to hurt someone that you love. Bad stuff happens when we move too quickly and when we are too full. People that you really, really care about are going to feel like you are not present with them because you are so busy all of the time. And so, practically speaking, space looks like pausing, meditations, slowing down, having and leading a contemplative life. And then phase two is the unlearn phase. So there is a teaching in the East about the Chintamani in India. It's the wish fulfilling jewel, the Chintamani. It lives in our heart. It's the real thing that we are. It's what Jesus called Peter, not Chintamani. He called him a rock, actually. But this is what he meant. However, to get to that jewel, you have to unlearn all the patterns that are keeping it blocked from you. Like it's covered in all this crap. And so to get to it, we've got to do some parts work. We've got to do some shadow work. We've got to feel our sanskaras and our wounds and understand what's driving our emotions and unlearn those patterned responses. Now, really important, we don't have to get lost in our trauma. I'm not a therapist. I realize that finally. It's possible to switch these things in a moment if you choose. And that's the road that I want to take. But nonetheless, we got to look at them. So it's helping people to understand when they are in reaction versus when they are letting their center lead them, when they are rooted and grounded. Another thing that we really need to unlearn is scarcity and feeling like we need to fight for what's ours in the world and that we need to win. Because if we need to win, well, guess what? Somebody else has got to lose. And then lastly, we've got to unlearn the shoulds. You know, that I should do this, I should do that. This person is expecting this, so I should do X, Y, and Z. That is fear as fuel. And we need to transition, or I recommend that you transition to love as fuel. It's a much cleaner fuel. You'll be able to keep going much longer, and it feels way more fun. Third phase, repattern. So this is about developing a new operating system that supports your new worldview and your new identity. This is really, really important because if we don't repattern, we fall back to what we were before. So this is about building practices and routines that keep you grounded and present. Okay. The goal is to bookend your day with morning and evening practices that allow for learning and growth and transformation in the beginning. And then that pattern begins to spread out to the rest of your life. It begins to imbue your workday and your family time and all of those things. Another thing that we repattern is we learn to see with lucidity. We learn to see beyond the words. We learn to see into somebody so that we can master the art of returning non-love with love, of being able to allow other people to freak out and lose their shit, and you can just stay grounded and rooted, and they can anchor back into you when they're done losing their mind. It's incredibly powerful if you can be that person. It is so magnetic. Build emotional literacy. So when we repattern, we've got to understand energy moving through our body so that we know how to respond to it. And part of that is building what I call an emotional map or an emotion body map. And there's some other phases to this too. We have to know how to process each of these different emotions that we have. And it's not like the last step where we're looking at them. This step is about doing something with the energy. And then, or this phase, I should say. And then lastly, with repatterning, it's developing a strong connection to witness consciousness and being that, having that be the operating system. And one more thing actually is repatterning your physical body, repatterning your movement and your posture, because genius doesn't come through a stooped posture. I don't know if you've ever noticed that or not. And then final phase is to steward. And stewardship is about nurturing your new identity because you recognize that it's not actually your identity, but it is God playing through you. You have become a vessel. And it is your role to steward the relationship that you've built with the universe. And so this phase is about maintaining an open channel of communication to God so that you always know what to do in each moment. It's stewarding your body, stewarding your heart, stewarding your mission, stewarding your relationships, becoming someone who serves the community and serves the planet. Not because you need them to do anything, but because it just naturally emerges from your heart. And this phase is about building a structure to create an impact for God or to create an impact for love. And this might be a business. However, a lot of the people that I'm going to be working with are going to have established businesses. They're going to be successful in the quote unquote successful in the outer world. So this is about building, maybe it's altering that structure in some way, shape, or form, or building a new structure that's more philanthropic that allows different parts of you to come out or to spill out into the world. I mean, then the last part here is to be a filter for resources, to get resources to the people that need them, to steward money, to steward food, to steward shelter, to steward whatever it is that people need to help that energy flow to the places that it needs to go. I hope that that adds some clarity and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk through it with y'all. Thank you. Seriously. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being a part of this journey. If this doesn't resonate with you, no hard feelings. And I send you lots of love. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Let's do some work. And hit me up if you want to do any of that stuff. Obviously, we can have a call and see if it's a good fit. I'd love to help heading into 2026. It's going to be a big year. Bye, y'all.